Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshack here, and I'm going to be going over the best decks that are currently found in Twist, the new game mode in Hearthstone. It's like a mixture in between Wild and Standard. Right now, the meta is looking very questy. It's, when we go over these decks, you're going to notice that most of these decks have some sort of quest in them. They are very fast decks. They are very aggressive decks. This is definitely the first meta they've incorporated into Twist. Is definitely more into the Wild side of things. It's not. Yeah, with no neutrals in this format, it does make it a little bit more interesting, but the sets that they had picked was probably not the best starting point for this new mode to showcase how fun it could be, because the quests have just finished dominating the meta for what, 1 to 2 years, and then like Twist's format is all quests pretty much. So I would have liked a little bit different than that, but not to say that they can't clean it up with the next one. They can implement any rule set they want with any expansion sets they want with this rotating format. Again, I have high hopes for this new format just because this first one may seem more of a miss than a hit. It doesn't mean it's not going to be fun in the future. So with that, covering the decks, what do we got going on? We have the Quest Druid. This deck took, I believe, Majin Buu to rank 1 legend, the first legend in Twist mode. Keep in mind that the Twist MMR, I thought it was going to be fresh, right? New mode, fresh MMR. Everybody starts bronze 10 with no stars. Not true. This actually pulls from your wild MMR. So if you were a legend in wild, or at least top 1500, if there are even 1500 players in wild, you'd have X11 in this new mode. So you could hit legend in basically just a couple hours is what people did, because they took their wild MMR, transferred it over. They didn't transfer, but Blizzard gave basically Twist your wild MMR. So if you played Wild a lot, you'll have some bonus stars. For those of you who don't play Wild, you'll have no bonus stars. I wish I would have known this beforehand. Nobody knew. It was not open knowledge. But yeah, that's why we have day 1 legends, because it only took a couple hours to literally get to legend in the new format. There was no fresh MMR for this, unless you've never played Wild. So Lost in the Park, Questline Druid, very powerful. With the new inclusions of the Groovy Cat, this basically makes this deck very easy to just pump out big hero powers. If you notice, there's no, like, what is it? Like Free the Animal, the 1 mana one that gives you armor. You don't care about armor. You're just caring about killing your opponent as fast as possible. Most of these decks that you see and we're going to cover aim to kill your opponent as fast. There's no defensive tools in this deck, and if they look defensive, it's merely to just kill your opponent's stuff so it's not in the way anymore, so then you can win. So very fast Druid deck here. Very, very quick. Has a lot of draw, you know, rush for each one the spell you've cast this game. This deck is mostly spells. Crypt Keeper, you're going to get a lot of armor with this deck, just from the spells you're going to be using, so you're going to go ahead and play that for free. So basically 7 mana and 8 mana minions are going to be free. One has rush, one has taunt, easy. You've got infinite draw, you've got a giga amount of armor. You got to kill everything in your path, basically. You're also getting armor when the quest completes each stage, so keep in mind that that's another really good way to get armor, is that each basically quest completion stage you're getting armor as well. And then besides that is just hit face every time. Like, most decks can't not die by turn 5 because they're getting hit in the face by like 25 damage from Go, because you have a bunch of other stuff that powers up your hero power. So yeah, very good deck. Obviously, if somebody hit rank 1 legend day 1, it's pretty good, right? We have my Weapon Rogue here. Super fun deck. Again, I don't think this is like the most refined version of Weapon Rogue, but I do believe Weapon Rogue is going to be fantastic. We also played this deck and we didn't lose a single game. I don't know why, but the Shank was just one of my favorite. Like, we played the Shank Rogue when it was bad, when it was okay, and then the deck actually was meta, I didn't play it anymore. But we went through a long chain of playing Shank Rogue and having just fun with the poisons. It's just really cool having a giant dagger you're just like beating your opponent in the face with, and it was mainly good against like Control Priest. So like that's probably why it felt so good, was you would just obliterate any control deck, especially Control Priest. So that was always fun. As you can see, the point of this deck is to play Shank. After you each play a poison, it gets a durability, and then you just run like a bunch of poisons that let you draw cards, give you plus attacks. You run a bunch of other cards like Shadow of Demise can turn into another poison. You're going to be playing a lot of cards. Surprise Plunder can kill giant things. Course, just kill whatever minion you want. Your opponent plays a taunt. No, they didn't. Things like that. Cloak of Shadows was huge in this deck because this buys you turns, give your hero stealth until the next turn, so you can't die. And then you have the Scabs, which is good too because this buys you another turn because it clears the board, gives you armor, and gives you 2/4/2s. And then you have Doctor to buff the weapon. Again, this is like more of like the fancy, like there's a lot of cards in here you don't need, like Doctor. self-sharpening sword or course, you really only need the Shank, but I find if you don't draw the Shank, having a weapon of some kind is good. You have a lot of poisons in this deck, and most of the time you don't draw them anyway. So I like the deck. This is how we did it. It's nice. It's good. Didn't lose a single game yesterday. You'll have fun, and shit's on crease, which is really nice. The next one we're going to take a look at is going to be the Quest Shaman. It's a very popular deck, very fun deck. It's quite exciting. So for those of you who don't know, it's play overload. When you complete the quest, Brocon allows you to cast your spells twice. Which means you can do a lot of really wacky things with stuff like lightning bolts, overdrafts, stuff with the primordial studies, the charge calls. You can just do some insane stuff with this deck. So Overload Quest Shaman, super fun deck. You'll have a good time with it. It actually got nerfed quite a few times back in the day because it was just basically OTKing people on turn like 5 to like 7. You could get the quest done, but I'm pretty sure they reverted the quest back to its old ways, right? Because like the Quest Mage went back to the guy giving +3 spell power, and I think Pirates went back down to 2/3/2 or something like that. So I'm not really sure how the other parts of this quest are working, but I've had a lot of people are having a lot of success with this deck. So as long as the quest isn't all 3/3/3, it should be pretty easy. Even if it is, Lightning Bloom is a hell of a card. Like it's really, really good. Moving to the OTK Biscuit Mage. This is one of my favorite mages that I played the most of back in the day because it was just fun. Muzaki's a hell of a card, and you can do some really disgusting things with Conjure, Biscuit, and all of the spells in the deck. This was our first deck that we posted a video on, so if you're interested in seeing how this deck works, we actually posted that video yesterday night. This deck basically can OTK between the turns of like 6 to 8 most of the time. You can win through a variety of ways, whether you're completing your quest to get the +3 spell power to win, or you're just OTKing fully with Muzaki. Either of those, you can just pick. One gets, somebody kills your Muzaki or pulls it from your hand, or you have to play it in order not to die, but you don't kill them. You have a full another win condition. And then even another win condition is just studies into the prime, and then you just play the prime, and he literally can win you the game too. So insane mage deck here. We went, I believe, like 10-3 with this yesterday. Climbed a lot. Again, this is definitely not the easiest deck to play in the world. You can't just play the green cards. If you would like to play the green cards, I highly recommend Libram Paladin. That deck, it's just play the cards and you'll do okay. We're not going to cover that deck because I don't want anybody actually playing that deck. I want you guys to use your brains. So next deck, Quest Demon Hunter. Again, these quests super popular. Most of the time with this Quest Demon Hunter, you're actually not even playing the quest to complete it. You're only playing it for the first 2 like bonus effects it gives, which is reduce the cost of cards drawn by 1. So you draw 4 cards, it reduces them down by 1, and then the next phase is draw 5 cards, you reduce them down by 1. And you basically do this in order to play this Brute very early because it costs 1 less for each card drawn this turn. This basically is going to cost 0 mana most of the time. And then you play stuff like the Philosophy. You duplicate this card, it gives it +1/+1, makes another one, it turns into a 7/8. You're playing 2 Brutes, maybe 3 Brutes. You've got a weapon out, and then you're playing Mana Burn, which makes it so your opponent doesn't have mana next turn, and then you're hitting your opponent for like 15 plus damage on roughly turn 3 to 4, 3 to 5, somewhere in there, and then you just win the following turn. So this deck, insane. Again, probably not the easiest deck to play at first because it has to be played in a very particular way with stuff like Glide, but once you get the hang of this deck and you just draw Brute, you just win. Like this is probably the strongest deck right now, which is why I left it for last. This Demon Hunter deck is by far probably the best deck in the game. It can win by turn about 3 to 4 with an entire board of minions, hitting your opponent for 20 plus, and then leaving your opponent. The key is it leaves your opponent without mana. Like your opponent literally can't play the game because they don't have any mana to. So like I said, twist format. I think the next iterations of what it will look like will be better than this one. But if you enjoyed the quest and you like super giga overpowered decks, this is it. This is your mode right now. So with that, enjoy these 5 decks, and I'll be pumping out videos for these shortly. So if you don't know how to play them or want to know more, expect those videos to come out within the next couple days. All right. As always, guys, I'm Robert Warshack, and happy whatever the hell date is.